Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me for episode 17 of Friday Book Bites. Today I am joined by author Michelle Dalton from up in the north of Brisbane there. Hi Michelle, how are you?
All right, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about writing through adversity. But before we do that, I'm just going to pop up the details of our giveaway because if I don't do it at the very beginning, I usually forget.
It's all good.
So if anyone who leaves a comment or asks a question either during the live stream now or if you're watching this back up until midday on Saturday, you can go into the running to win a copy of Michelle's book, Forget Me Not. And Michelle might also slip in another little surprise with that, but we won't spoil what that surprise is. So that's the giveaway. Isn't that a most gorgeous cover? I love the colours.
She is beautiful. Thank you.
Gorgeous. So thank you again for joining me. As I said,
Thanks
we're talking today about writing through adversity, and you've written romance with suspense in it. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
And you've also written under a pen name some steampunk.
Yes.
Which must be a lot of fun.
It is.
But through all of this, there have been some hurdles. Now, every writer has hurdles of some description, whether that's juggling family or work or children or parents or whatever the situation is. There's always something that can get in the way of the writing life.
Yes.
And, it might be procrastination. And yes, Michelle Parsons, I'm looking at you. She's a great one for procrastination. But there are other things as well, and sometimes some bigger things that can get in the way. And you have had to overcome something that I can only imagine, particularly as a writer, is a fairly large hurdle, and that's dyslexia, Michelle.
Yes. My superpower. It took me a long time to get to acknowledge that it's my superpower. As a kid, it didn't quite feel that way. As a kid, it was a burden and a curse. And you know what kids are like at school. Any weakness, they sniff it out and they go for it. So I think the greatest or the time it hurt me most was when I was a child. And it's not because, yes, people are mean, but it's not because they mean to be. It's human nature, and it's a lack of education and understanding. But I have this really awesome mom, and because of her and my gran and great-grandmother, because of those three women, I learned that this is my superpower, and I used it instead of allowing it to stop me, if I can put it that way.
So as a child, obviously that would have made schooling just that little bit more challenging. So how did you find your way into becoming a writer?
I never wanted to, I wasn't like a lot of other writers that always knew that they wanted to write books. They could see themselves as writers. I just always loved telling stories. I come from a very rich line, or my family does, of rich storytellers, and especially my gogo. Now that's Zulu for great-grandmother. She was the most magnificent storyteller, and she would always sit down and tell me stories. And I would always like to sit with my friends at school and tell them stories. And it's really one of my fondest memories is taking Xerox paper and writing my own stories with my own little illustrations and giving it to my dad, and my dad Xeroxing it at his office. Now, if anyone that doesn't know what a Xerox is, like a photocopy machine.
You're showing our age, Michelle.
And he had the long arm stapler, and he'd staple and he'd make his little booklets for me. And I'd go to school and hand out my little storybooks. And I can't remember anyone ever not liking them. My friends really liked them. But there was also a downside to it. Oh, no, hang on. Let me first answer this question. Sorry, Sandy.
You're right.
I always enjoyed writing, and I've got a couple of notebooks on my bookshelf of writing, penning poetry and short stories just through my travels as a young woman and my studies and the ugly things I'd seen and experienced as a young woman. And then I think actually E.L. James did the world a great favor when she wrote 50 Shades, because she tempted a lot of us to go, if you can, so can I. And that was the switch that flipped, and I went, I'm going to do this thing. And that was 10 years ago. And I sat down and, and you will know, you don't just sit down and write a book and voila, now you publish. No, it took me there you go. It took another 8 years before I was ready. And there's a couple of books on the shelf that will never see the light of day, that only I will ever read. But that's my writing journey. It just kind of happened, and I love it.
When you made that decision that you wanted to pursue this crazy writing dream that we have, and I say it's crazy because it's a definitely an interesting ride. Were you nervous at all about your dyslexia? Because, writing is all about words.
Yes. One of the biggest things, and I think other dyslexics might, I don't want to assume, hear me when I say this, you are incredibly scared of being called stupid. Mm-hmm. Me especially, because kids called me stupid at school. They called me a lot of other ugly names too that I don't want to say live on the internet. I had a school teacher who refused to teach me because she doesn't teach stupid children. In retrospect, it was purely because if anyone was stupid, it was her. And not stupid in the sense of dumb, but ignorant, because if I think about it, I think she was afraid. Back then, they didn't know what dyslexia was, or the little bit they knew, the teachers weren't trained. And what's the first thing a human does when you're afraid? You put up your defenses. That's what I do, even still today. The moment someone tries to make up that I'm stupid because I'm blonde or I'm dyslexic or something, my defenses go up. End of story. And so that scared me when I started writing, when I started finding communities where I could share my work. I experienced a variety of feedback. I experienced from the horrible people who were grammar Nazis and absolutely nailed me to the wall, to people that actually showed me in a constructive way how to improve, how to grow. I'll be honest with you, my grammar and my punctuation still sucks, but I have this awesome editor. And I literally just go, here's a story, now you make it pretty. I don't want to know. I've read books I've tried to re-educate myself on all the fancy bits of writing, but my brain's not interested. And frankly, I reckon if my story is good enough and my edit is good enough, then I've got a winning recipe. So why spaz myself out? Also through the journey, you eventually find your tribe, your community where you're safe. I did, and it was an online American community, The Right Practice. It's owned by Joe Bunting. It's just such a phenomenal group of people where writers from all over the world, we come together, and just the way we help each other grow is just great. And I'm trying to replicate that here in Australia again, because I've been given so much. I want to give as well. I want to give back. That's something that dyslexia has taught me, strange enough, is to notice how much I've been given, and that it expands when I give back, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And this leads into my next question and a comment from Michelle Parsons, and she's talking about your mother and your grandmother here being remarkable women, and she loves the idea of you treating it as a superpower. So that was my next question going to be, obviously there are hurdles you have to overcome when you're writing with dyslexia, but what are the magic moments that you get out of it? Is there something special that comes with it?
Look, if I stop and I cry, it's just because when I talk about those awesome women, I tend to tear up because they were so magnificent And they brought so much into my life that it still touches me very deeply. My mom is still alive. She lives in South Africa, but the other two have obviously passed on. But, so all I'm saying is I apologize for my emotionalness. Okay, so you were the magic moments. Man, okay, one was when words clicked. I don't know. I think the best example of how I saw words was, have you ever watched Percy Jackson?
Yes.
Yes. So they think he's dyslexic and he sees all the Greek. Okay, now, luckily enough for Percy, it's just because he can bloody well read Greek. All right.
Yeah.
But to me, and I think a lot of other dyslexics, it really does look like Greek. And we didn't have this awesome dad that changed all the words into sense for us. But your brain does build new neural paths. And with the special physical exercises that my mom did with me, eventually something snapped. And the funny thing is the correlation between balance, your core muscles and your brain. And we happened to go down to the coast for a holiday, and I wanted to learn how to boogie board. And I just couldn't stay on this thing. I was tumbling over and lost my balance. I had no balance. And all of a sudden, I got my balance and I could swim and I could stay on this boogie board. And when I went back to school, I could read. It was just a switch. That was one of the magic moments. It was awesome to look down at this book and look at my teacher and go, Miss, I know, I can see. It's making sense. Other times were when you're sitting in class or anywhere in life and there's a problem or there is a puzzle and everyone looks at it like this and they see that. And you happen to pass by and you look at it and you go, actually, I see it like this, and something snaps. And you're actually teaching others to look at life and their surroundings differently. I often tell them, go stand on your head. That's how I see the world. And it's pretty awesome because it'll make sense to your brain. Don't worry. It's just different. It's fun. What was the other magic moment was school was always hard. I passed it by the skin of my bum, literally. I eventually gave up on myself learning because it was so hard. So I turned into a bit of a grungy teen that didn't want to learn. But I also always knew I wanted to be a nurse. And I walked into uni to study nursing, and I had these brilliant lecturers. And because of the way they structured our learning, it's very outcomes-based. Suddenly learning became an amazing experience. Where I cummed my degree, I just passed. I'd never passed anything academic, and I was flying through. So yes, there are good moments. And just because I'm dyslexic, and that's what I tell people, doesn't mean you can't experience success. We just do it on a different level. We do it. We've got to work a little bit harder, but there's a lot more fun to it as well. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. And there's quite a few people making comments about how inspirational you are telling this story. So thank you very much for sharing that, Tracy. Says you are an inspiration. Claudine is saying that, listening to this story makes your success even more inspirational than it was.
Love.
And Leanne has made the comment that you've got great willpower, Michelle, and that you are very inspiring. And I think Danny's giving you a clap there.
Okay, thank you, love. Thanks.
Which is really nice. You mentioned, standing on your head to look at the world and looking at things differently. So do you think this experience that you've had with dyslexia has actually made you a better writer because you look at the world a little bit differently?
A better storyteller.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think I focus on different aspects of storytelling. I think, okay, this is just this is me. Sure. I think I add a little bit more spice. I've never had to, the one thing I never had to do, and I'm not saying this in an arrogant way, please don't get me wrong, is I've seen a lot of people when they want to write a book. So how they learn the story structure. I've never had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had to, like I've said to you before, what I had to learn was where to put the comma and where to put the ellipsis and all that. Story structure came naturally. And I've got a pattern to a story structure that is not always what is taught to most writers. And I think it's a little bit off-center. But just that off-center, I think, gives it that extra quirk. It doesn't make me a brilliant storyteller, no. It just gives me something different. You know, instead of putting garlic in, I put a little bit of extra turmeric in. I don't know.
It is lunchtime. Don't make us hungry.
Okay, sorry.
Karen's got a personal little message here that she'll never forget the look on her son's face after a year of vision therapy to assist what would later be diagnosed as dyslexia, when it all came together and finally he could see and read things in the way that we always just take for granted. And
Yeah.
I'll look at this. You're going to make me cry too.
Yes, it is. I think, Karen, my mom would say the same to you. The day I came home from school and I ran into the house with my book and I said, I could read, Mom. It's amazing. And I think I just want to add as well is that's what makes me so tired when we put each other in boxes. Mm-hmm. Just because people like me take longer to learn to read or to understand the world, we're expected to understand the world like everyone else. So I understand why smaller groups of people stand up so aggressively for their rights. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because why do we always have to do it like everyone else? We will do it on our own time and on our own terms, and we won't hurt anyone doing that. But we will do it, and we will bring you magnificent gifts along the way, which humanity deserves. And that is probably one of the greatest messages I want to give when it comes to dyslexia is, like anything else that is different from what we perceive as the norm, it's a gift. That's where the magic lies in this world. And we must stop forgetting that. We must stop being afraid of it. We need magic now more than ever.
Oh, absolutely. And Tracy's commenting that she thinks we're all crying now. Thanks, Michelle. You've made my audience cry.
Sorry.
No, and I think this is why what you just said there, you know, particularly in the moment, the way the world is with all the sorts of issues that are going on out there, I think this is why we're crying in a situation like this, because we know how much we need that magic right now, and it's a little bit hard to find sometimes. Oh, Michelle's crying too.
Sorry, guys.
Maybe with the giveaway you need to send a box of tissues, I think.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh dear.
I think that's what we've got to keep on reminding each other, especially on social media. I can be very vocal sometimes on social media about uplifting each other. Stop being, and please excuse my language, but stop being bitches. Stop being bitchy, narcissistic trolls. We must stop telling each other what we're doing wrong and instead focus on what we're doing right. We need to uplift each other. A lot of writers have this sense of, look, competition isn't bad. It's not bad, but of being afraid of competition, of thinking the next person is doing better than them, and so they won't do better than what they're doing right now. We must stop doing that. If we stand together, then we remind each other of that magic. We need to do more than that. And the writers community I'm trying to build, Heart and Craft, this is where I'm trying to remind people is we're here together. We're learning together, we're growing together, and we're making magic together. And when you make magic together, it's 10 times more powerful. Sorry, so there's my 2 cents.
No, I think it's well and truly more than 2 cents. And as Cassie said, it's so refreshing and so heartfelt. And I think you're absolutely right. we spend so much time tearing each other down, and maybe not individually, but as a society we certainly do, and not enough time building each other up. And it's such an important thing. You know, we've spoken about your dyslexia. I battle with depression, and I'm in a bit of a bout at the moment. And my writing family, you know, are one that I can turn to for help. And one of them, who is here on this chat right now, has been checking in with me every couple of days. You know, are you okay? Good. How are you going? And I can't tell you just how much that has meant to me, just to know that someone's got your back, you know, and that someone's in your corner, but they can't help, you know, in my instance. And
but they're still there for you, and that's the magic.
Exactly. Tracy is commenting that it's much too easy on social media to bring people down because of the anonymity. Exactly. You know, you see people saying things, they would never say it to your face.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. And if they did have the opportunity to say it to your face, they would then feel the bitterness of their words and think twice about what they were going to do or say. So there's a lack of responsibility when you troll someone. There's a lack of responsibility when you bitchy on social media. And that is something I really, really want to make people, my own children, aware of every day. You know, and once you've put it out there, even with your mouth, it's something you can never take away. It's a form of energy you're putting out there, and it will inevitably make a U-turn and come straight back at you, you know. So at some point, we've all just got to take a step away, breathe, and stop doing what we're doing, because it's easy. It's easy to be mean.
It is. And as writers, we know words have power, and they have immense power for good and for bad as well.
Yes. So no.
As Bev says, you know, having a positive attitude is so important in overcoming things, and obviously you've got that from your mother and your grandmothers as well.
I do. They were very uplifting. But one thing I also taught is that was taught in you mentioned you have depression. I've got a similar, I don't know what to call it, affliction, curse, or another bit of magic, whatever.
Another superpower.
Yes, okay. Is you're going to have your down days. And you know what? That's okay. Don't throw pink paint on it. In other words, don't sugarcoat it and go, I need to think positive to get myself out of this. No, it's okay. Today, I'm having a shitty day. I don't want to get out of the house. I don't even feel like getting out of my pajamas. And I'm allowing myself a shitty day because tomorrow I'm pulling up my big girl undies and I'm going to look that thing in the face and I'm going to get on with it. And it's hard because no one else can do it for us. No one. But there are always people that have our backs, just like you've mentioned. And that is what gets us through. That's the magic. You know, that is the essence of humanity, is having each other's backs no matter what.
Yeah, it is. And as Michelle's just commented, kindness costs nothing, but it is priceless to the recipient. And you never know just how much that word or that gesture of kindness will positively impact that person.
I've seen it a lot in nursing. It's probably the thing that gave me the most fulfillment. People often ask me, why nursing? Why not a doctor? And I go, because I wasn't interested in the science of medicine. I was interested in the humanity of medicine. Is when you give a little bit of yourself to someone who is so alone, so afraid, is in pain, is confused, and it's just that single second of tenderness. And you see it in their eyes and you can actually see them glow. And you go, shit, yes, that's it. Because, you know, and call me woo-woo, but I do believe in certain things and I believe we're all connected. So when I give you that bit of goodness from me to you, it goes on and eventually it comes back to me again, tenfold. And this is the uplifting part. You know, this is the zhuzh in life.
It is. Cassie has made the comment that there are so many truth bombs going off today. Truth bombs and tears. Maybe that should be the next segment title, Truth Bombs and Tears. I like that. Maybe we could write
I
a
like
book
that
about
too. You see now.
And Michelle says she loves a little bit of woo-woo.
Yeah, a little bit of woo-woo is always good. But it's good to keep a balance in everything in life, I reckon.
Yeah, and Cassie says that nursing is the most noble profession. It really, truly is. I lost my first child, 15 years ago now, and it was the nurses that showed me the kindness in the hospital. And there's one whose name I still remember and whose face I can still picture, who was just that woman in that moment.
Yeah.
That's the darkest days of my life.
Yeah.
And just that gentle kindness from her was, it has stayed with me 15 years later.
That's beautiful, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is you're still holding on to that little bit of light, that little bit of love that she's given you all these years later, and that's amazing. That is amazing.
It really
so,
is.
Yeah.
And Claudine loves your concept that we're all connected. It's not woo-woo.
Okay, thank you.
Not with woo-woo. One other aspect I wanted to touch on, because we're talking about adversity, which is why we're in so much, emotional state right now, is you are from South Africa originally. You moved to Australia approximately 10 years ago. And I've noticed that your stories are set in Queensland, in Scotland, and in South Africa. And the reason you left South Africa was because of the increasing violence that was there at the time. How much has that informed your writing?
Oh, so much. It's left a scar.
Mm-hmm.
The violence that is now even worse than when we left.
Mm-hmm.
Africa, and you talk to any African, and let me tell you, we come in all shapes and colors. Just because we're African doesn't mean we mustn't be white or whatever. Africa is in your bone marrow. I long for the smell of the bushveld after a thunderstorm. And I long the way the earth moves under my feet. And while I now call Australia home, I don't feel home because my soul is on a different continent, along with the rest of my family. But the violence I could never explain. I've often tried to explain it to my fellow Australians because you haven't experienced something like it. And that is something I'm so grateful for, because it changes you. It changes your very DNA. So it is very much, I've often had to go back. Simple Truths, where I touch on human trafficking, that's the book before Forget Me Not. I actually had to go back and remove a lot of it because I realized I'd written horror and not a romance. I'd allowed too much of the violence to enter my book. So I've got to find that balance. I think Ipona is probably the book where I've shown the most of the South African violence, because he's an actual farm attack in the story. And I do this for a reason, because people don't know and the news twists everything. So yes, Africa and my bad experiences, but also my good experiences, have influenced my writing. My book out, which is the book that'll be after Forget Me Not, it's called Road to Redemption, is set on the west coast of South Africa. And there I try and show more of the beauty of South Africanness. It's hard because of the way we left. There was so much bitterness and hurt. It's hard to remember the good stuff. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry if I get lost.
No, it's brilliant. And I guess I wanted to ask you then, how do you find that balance when it's such an ingrained part of you, and as you said at the beginning, it's left its scar on you? How do you find that balance in your books of portraying the horror but being uplifting in the end?
It's a feeling. It really is. If I'm reading a scene and I'm left feeling broken, I know I've gone too far because I don't want to leave my reader broken. I want to pull my reader in and give them a bit of a wobble, but then they need to breathe. They need to be able to surface. If I battle to surface from that scene, my reader definitely will not. And I'm not leaving my reader in that dark hole because that's not the story I'm writing. I am just showing you what can happen, but would rather leave you in the light and with a sense of completion and love and happy ever after, which is what romance is essentially about. Because at the end of the day, I love romance and I'm not a thriller writer.
Leilani has mentioned that it's an ancestral belonging when you're talking about your connection with Africa.
Yes. You know, it's got a torrid history, but show me a place in the world that doesn't. Exactly. And I'm at a place in my life where I'm sick and tired of being reminded of history. Yes, horrible things happened. But if we don't let it go, we're never going to move on. And we're just repeating those mistakes. I wish Africa would do that. Africa is scarred deeply, and the scarring is only continuing. It's such a phenomenal continent. It's so much, there's so much magic to be had there. So yeah, ancestral belonging, absolutely. I also believe that my ancestors weren't only European. I know that there's mixed blood there, and it doesn't bother me, don't get me wrong. I appreciate that because that makes me even more African. And that's fine by me. I love that.
Excellent.
I love that I've got European blood in me too. And that's where I bring the Scottish part in as well, because my gogo, my great-grandmother, her family came from Scotland to farm sugar in South Africa. So we're all connected.
We are. We absolutely are. Michelle is saying that she thinks this is her favourite episode of Friday Book Bite. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Thank you for that. Despite the tears, or maybe because of the tears.
Yeah, both, I reckon.
Yeah. I'm just going to pop up contact details for Michelle. If anyone is looking for her online, there is her website, her Facebook, and her Instagram. And these are 4 of her covers. I haven't got the steampunk ones up there. You've mentioned all of these, I think, during today's talk, and Forget Me Not is the one that our listeners can go in the running to win. And you also touched on Road to Redemption, which is going to be your next novel. What else can you tell us about that?
Road to Redemption. Okay, so you meet the main character in the first book, Simple Truths. But in Simple Truths, he's a real, excuse my language, but he's a real shit, okay? You really won't like him. But he spoke to me in the first book, and he kept on coming back and saying, hello, I know I'm an idiot, but I have a story to tell. And eventually I was like, oh, fine. Okay. I sat down and I wrote his story. So in Simple Truths, he's a druggy, racist son of a gun. Okay. So how do you come back from something like that? There's got to be a reason why this man is who he is. And that's what I touch on. I touch on what turned him into this nasty piece of human. And to show people that we get hurt in life and we have choices. And what are the choices we make and where do they lead us? And eventually he's faced with another choice in life where he can continue on the self-destructive road, or he can redeem himself. And it's his redemption. And yes, it's a romance and it's a second chance love. And there's a secret baby involved. So I've chucked it all in the pot and stirred it around. And it is very much so based in South Africa and on the West Coast. And to complete the theme, because I've got these sub-themes in this entire series, which is human trafficking, art trafficking, and now poaching. So I touch on the abalone poaching that happens a lot in South Africa. So it's on an abalone farm on this West Coast. And I've got this incredibly beautiful heroine. She's a single mom, self-made. She's from Cape Malay background, and just how she's, you know, got to make sense of everything that's happened to herself, and that's happened now, and then with this man re-entering her life, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of up and down, not too much darkness. I think it's a little bit lighter than the other two, but it felt good. It felt good to write it, so I reckon it's going to be an awesome read.
I'm sure it is. And when can we expect that out, Michelle?
The book will be out the 19th of October. She'll be out there for everyone who wants to read, all over the show.
Well, I think Tracy might be interested. She loves redeemed characters.
Oh, awesome. I think I did a good job with him, Tracy, so I'd like to know your feedback.
And Claudine is recommending Simple Truths and telling us to put it on our to-be-read piles.
Thanks, Claudine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle. And I'm just going to leave with two more comments here. Michelle Parsons, who's saying the reason this is her favourite episode so far is that it's so raw and honest and coming from the heart. So I can't thank you enough for opening your heart to me and to our listeners today and sharing that. It's not always easy to talk about these things that are so personal to us, but I think we can see from everybody's reaction here today that we need to talk about them, and if we can connect with each other through that, then it's a really special moment. So
thank you so much for having me. And even if you don't know me, if you need someone, I've got broad shoulders. Even you, love, just drop me a text. I'm good at that stuff. I'm good at listening. Go for it. I'm always here for anyone.
I'll pop up your details again then, just in case.
There you go. Oh, good. Thank you, love.
Thank you for our inspiring chat. Tracy is also thanking us. And
pleasure.
Thank you from Bev and from Karen as well, and saying what a beautiful human. I'm sure she's referring to you and not me. I actually know Karen in real life. I'm sure she's not referring to me.
Shame. Of course, we're all beautiful. Remember that, my love. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for listening to my chattering, and just thanks for the love, guys. Thanks for the love. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much. And I'll draw the winner of the giveaway tomorrow, and I think I might enter it myself. Can I enter it myself?
Yes, go for it. Go for it. Please do. Thank you so much, love.
Before we go, Michelle, I think you've made a fatal error though, darling.
Oh, what? What did I do?
Michelle Parsons is going to have you on speed dial.
All good. As long as there's wine involved, I'm happiness.
Michelle is a wine drinker. You will be fine.
Then I'm happy. It's all good. Go for it, love. No, I was very sincere in my offer. So anytime, guys. You guys take care now.
I think Karen might be worried that I'm going to see her at the shops this afternoon because she's now telling me I'm a beautiful person too. All right, I think we've gone past the point of emotion and we're into silliness now. So I think, I think we might wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next week. And all the best. Bye.
You too, lovely. Bye.